Hi, this is lecture number 3 for Unit 1. So who were the earliest people? Where did they live? And how did they live? And what were their cultural contributions? For that matter, what is culture exactly? These are questions we will be answering in today's lecture. How on earth do groups of people build this? Wow. Well, they probably start with something along these lines. See, there are many things that need to happen for civilizations to emerge. The question is also, hey, how do we figure out how people lived so long ago? Well, before we created cave art or built complex pyramids, we had to master certain other skills. The invention of tools, creation of fire, and the development of language. These are fairly impressive human achievements. These occurred, scientists believe, during a period of time called the Stone Age. There were 2 Stone Ages in history. We refer to the oldest portion of the Stone Age as the Old Stone Age, or the Paleolithic Era. Much of the Paleolithic Era coincided with the Ice Age, which only ended around 10,000 years ago. The Paleolithic Era lasted from about 2.5 million years ago to about 8,000 BC. Scientists believe the earliest ancestors to Homo sapiens, or humans, popped up about 40,000 years ago from Cro-Magnon people who lived during the Paleolithic period. The latter portion of the Stone Age started around 8,000 BC and lasted until around 3,000 BC. This is called the Neolithic Era, or the New Stone Age. There are some key differences between the 2 periods. During the Paleolithic times, most people were nomads, moving from place to place for food sources. They lived more of a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. The primary difference between the Paleolithic era and the Neolithic era was the development of a more settled life, which included pottery making, growing crops, and the domestication of animals for food. This basically means raising animals to eat. However, early humans left behind many clues about how they lived, with which archaeologists continue to dig up. These artifacts, which are items or tools that early people used and leave behind, as well as skeletal remains of early humans themselves, all provide us with a picture for how people lived so long ago. There is evidence in cave paintings of early Paleolithic life. The Lascaux caves in France, discovered in 1940, contain over 600 painted animals and symbols. They are believed to have been created between 15,000 to 13,000 BC. The caves were closed to the public in 1963 to help preserve the paintings, but a replica museum has been built that people can now visit. These images show us scenes from how people lived during prehistoric times. Prehistory simply means before there was writing to keep a record of things. Prehistorical, therefore, means before there was an ability to keep a written record of life. It was during the Neolithic era that we're going to see the emergence of early writing systems. Much happened during the Neolithic era. First and foremost, people began to live a more settled life. And where did they settle? Well, river valleys, of course. And why rivers? Well, river valleys offer fertile soil for crops to be grown, as well as a constant source of irrigation to water those crops. Now, was there farming during the prior periods of time, like the Paleolithic era? And I just messed that up. So I'm saying, was there farming during the prior period of time, the Paleolithic era? Of course there was. It's just that they typically used different methods. During the Old Stone Age, people tended to use a method of farming called slash and burn. They would cut down plants or brush on a bit of land, burn it, and use the ashes to fertilize the soil. They would then move on to another bit of land the next year in order to do the same thing. So although it was farming, it wasn't a really settled way of life per se. It was during the Neolithic era that wide-scale farming began to occur along rivers, and the ability to grow crops like wheat that could then be used to make a staple food like bread helped to create conditions that made for a more stable lifestyle. Once people mastered farming, or farming a staple crop, and learned to domesticate animals for food, for meat and for milk, human populations grew. When people no longer have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can start producing more music, artwork, and hey, pyramids or other kick-butt complex structures. Any society that can produce enough food for a growing population, as well as have a surplus of food, and that's really important, which surplus means extra food, is said to have gone through what we say is an agricultural revolution. An agricultural or farming revolution must occur before civilization can be established. Additionally, once there's enough food, people can start creating jobs for different people in society. No longer does everyone need to farm. Instead, with this new job specialization, they can begin to create pottery, become metal workers, and form governments. There is archaeological evidence to suggest that early people in the Paleolithic era were using stones and later copper for their tools. Beginning in the Neolithic era, people began to use bronze tools. Bronze was first used around 3,000 years ago, leading to the term Bronze Age. So basically, these are all characteristics of civilizations that we've been talking about. A civilization simply means you have a lot of people living in one place in an organized fashion, or it can be defined as a complex culture with certain key characteristics. These characteristics included a specialized workforce, the ability to keep records with a form of writing, advanced technology, advanced or well-planned cities, and complex institutions like governments, religion, and education. Civilization is basically the rise of complex cities. The earliest cities are thought to have popped up in river valleys in Mesopotamia, in the Fertile Crescent, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what we now call Iran and Iraq. But those are mostly located in Iraq. And there are other civilizations that popped up in East Africa along the Nile River. Additionally, there is evidence to suggest that some of the earliest civilizations popped up in eastern China along several rivers, including the Huanghe or Yellow River. So we've come a long way from the cave drawings of the prehistoric era. Thanks for listening. Bye.